Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. Before we knew how to name it, before we measured it in cups or litres or falling skies, water was simply the softness that held the earth. It slipped through everything, through stone, through roots, through time, and within each drop something quiet waited. You could hold it in your hand and never notice that you were holding a miracle. Not just a liquid, not just a drink, but a shapeshifter, a memory keeper, a silent traveller older than any story we have ever told. Water is made of only 3 atoms, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, but the way they cling together, the way they lean into one another, gives water a strange and beautiful life. Each molecule is shaped like a tiny V, like arms reaching outward. And when millions of these V's come together, they hold hands in a dance so delicate it changes the world. This dance gives water its surface tension, its ability to rise and curl and bead on leaves. It lets it climb trees, carry life, and carve rivers into mountains. It lets it shimmer. But what's more surprising is how these molecules whisper to one another. Not with sound, but with bonds, hydrogen bonds, fleeting and fast. Each water molecule reaches out, touches another, then lets go, over and over. It's like a soft hum, constant and full of longing. No molecule stays alone for long. They are always finding each other, holding for a moment, then drifting apart. And this never stops. Not in the stillest pond, not in the deepest sea. Even in a single droplet, there are billions of tiny embraces. When dawn touches the world, it touches the water first. Light slides across oceans, ponds, puddles. It makes water glow not from within, but from reflection. The molecules don't know they are shining, but somehow they carry that shimmer, just like they carry heat, cold, and memory. That's the other secret. Water remembers, not like a brain remembers, but like a shape does. It holds the fingerprint of where it's been. Ice remembers cold, vapour remembers warmth, and liquid water remembers both, existing between 2 worlds, never choosing, always flowing. Long ago, in the first cradle of Earth, water was the place where life first stirred. It held the first molecules of what would become us, proteins and sugars and threads of code. All of it drifted in warm water, curled like seeds waiting to wake. And the water cradled it gently, letting it bump and bind, fuse and form. Without water, the chemistry of life could not begin. Water is not just a backdrop to our story, it is the stage, the script, the breath between lines. And even now, inside you, that story continues. Every cell in your body floats in a bath of water. Your blood is water, carrying oxygen like tiny boats. Your tears, your sweat, the moisture in your breath. It's all made of those same molecules that have travelled through rivers, clouds, and ancient rain. The water in your cup today may have once fallen on the back of a dinosaur, or drifted through the lungs of a blue whale, or frozen on the wing of a bird in flight. It has no beginning, it has no end, it just moves. And the way it moves, oh, it's gentle and fierce at once. It swirls in eddies, curls through soil, dances in steam. It listens to gravity and heat, obeys nothing and everything. When it flows through pipes, it hums. When it drips from a leaf, it sings. And in the smallest corner of a quiet morning, a droplet can balance on the tip of a blade of grass, trembling in the light of the new day, alive with billions of tiny bonds, whispering their names into the dawn. Now imagine being that drop, held in tension, kissed by light, suspended between falling and staying. That's what water always is, between things, between solid and gas, between now and then. It never settles, not really. Even in stillness, its molecules dance, they quiver, they breathe. And when you see a raindrop sliding down glass, remember, it is not falling because it is pulled. It is falling because it is letting go. There's a word scientists use for water's clinginess: cohesion. It means that water loves to stay close to itself. It holds itself together. But it also loves touching other things, your skin, your hair, the curve of a stone. That's called adhesion. So water lives in tension, the need to stay with itself, and the urge to reach out, like all of us maybe. And then there's capillary action, the way water climbs, against gravity, against logic, against expectation. It moves through narrow spaces, the tiny tunnels in plants, the spaces between soil, the weave of your clothes. It does this not with strength, but with connection. The molecules pull each other upward, like friends helping friends. It's how water reaches the tops of trees, how it delivers life in silence. Even in its frozen form, water tells stories. Snowflakes are six-pointed because of the shape of the water molecule. The V shape builds crystals with symmetry. No two snowflakes are the same, not because water is chaotic, but because it is endlessly creative. It always builds from the same rules, but never the same result. Just like nature, just like you. So next time it rains, step outside, hold your hand out, catch a drop, let it rest in your palm, feel its coolness. Know that inside that single bead is a world of bonds, of motion, of memory. It is not just rain, it is the breath of oceans, the echo of glaciers, the tears of clouds. It is the same water that dreamed the first dawn, and it's whispering still. Let's drift deeper into the shape of water, not as something we drink or clean with, but as something that dreams. The molecules within it are always moving, even when water looks still. They twist and twirl and knock gently against one another like dancers in a slow waltz, never quite still, never truly alone. And in that motion there is a kind of memory, a way of holding on to the last place they touched, the last shape they wore, the last warmth they felt. This isn't memory like ours of faces or voices. It's a physical kind of remembering, a memory of connection and energy. Imagine for a moment that you are made of water, which in many ways you are. More than half your body is water, and in your earliest form, when you were just a tiny cluster of cells, you floated in a world of liquid. That liquid wasn't just keeping you alive, it was shaping you. Water cushioned you, washed over you, pressed softly against your forming skin. It carried nutrients, signals, warmth. You grew in a cradle of motion, and long before you took your first breath, you were already swimming through memory. Even now, every thought you have rides on the back of water. Your brain, the seat of your dreams and decisions, is like a soft sponge of electric ideas, and all of those sparks, your memories, your moods, your voice, travel through a medium of fluid. Water carries the sodium and potassium ions that help your neurons fire. Without water, there is no thinking, no feeling. It is the unseen current behind every smile, every sigh. And water doesn't just carry things, it shapes them. It's the artist of the landscape, the unseen sculptor of valleys and caves. A single drop of rain may seem soft, but give it time, years, centuries, eons, and it can carve through stone. Water doesn't need force, it only needs patience. That's its secret strength. It keeps going. Over and over, it presses and turns and smooths and polishes until even the hardest mountain becomes a whisper of its former self. Water listens, water remembers, water waits. There's something else too. Water can hold light. Not forever, not like glass, but it bends it. When light hits water, it slows down, shifts direction, splits into colours. That's why rainbows happen. That's why puddles glisten. Inside each raindrop is a miniature prism, refracting the sky. And in that tiny bending of light, the world becomes softer, more magical. Light doesn't bounce off water the way it does with mirrors or metal. It passes through, dances within, and comes out transformed. In the early morning, when dew rests on grass, what you're seeing is more than moisture. That dew is the result of a quiet balance between air and temperature, between sky and leaf. It's the earth breathing out and the air answering. The water vapour in the air, invisible and weightless, finds something cool to touch, and in that moment it returns to form. It becomes visible again. That's the thing about water. It disappears and reappears, but never truly leaves. Clouds are another form of this disappearing act. They are made of tiny droplets, suspended so finely they can float. They look solid like cotton or smoke, but they're mostly space. They're made of water, too small to fall, too gentle to drop, and yet they carry oceans within them. One single cloud can weigh thousands of tons, but it holds that weight like a whisper, drifting on winds. Water once again, doing the impossible, holding weight with grace. When clouds finally release their cargo, rain begins. And even here, the fall of water is not simple. Raindrops don't fall as teardrops. They form into spheres, flattened by air resistance, shaped by tension and gravity. As they fall, they collect dust, pollen, even bacteria. Each raindrop is its own tiny world. Some scientists believe that certain bacteria in the sky help start the rain, tiny life forms that trigger condensation. If true, then water and life are dancing even before rain touches the ground. And what happens when that rain lands? It doesn't just vanish, it spreads. Some of it slips into soil, pulled downward by thirst. It finds roots, seeds, and stones. It wakes up sleeping things. Some of it runs across the surface, joining other droplets to form rivulets, streams, and rivers. And some of it, the most quiet, evaporates again, rising into the sky, starting the cycle over. There is no moment when water is ever finished. It only changes rooms. In deserts, water hides. It waits in the shade of stones, clings to the underside of leaves, sleeps beneath the surface. Plants there have learned how to capture it, store it, protect it. Some bloom only when touched by a single drop. Their seeds can sleep for years, decades even, until water returns. And when it does, they awaken, bloom, and vanish just as quickly. Water writes the calendar of their lives. In glaciers, water holds stillness. It locks itself in ice, waiting through centuries of cold. Each layer of ice tells a story. The snow that fell, the dust it caught, the bubbles of ancient air trapped inside. Scientists read glaciers like books. They drill deep, pulling out long tubes of ice, and inside those frozen layers are clues to past climates, volcanoes, fires, even distant stars whose dust floated down with snow. The water holds it all, perfectly preserved. In the deepest parts of the ocean, water becomes a mystery. It presses with such weight that even steel would crumple. And yet life lives there. Strange fish, glowing jelly, creatures that never see the sun. They drift in the dark, carried by slow, cold currents. And the water that surrounds them is ancient. It may have taken 1,000 years to reach that depth. Down there it moves like a dream, silent, cold, relentless. And within your own heart there is a rhythm that water keeps. With every beat blood flows, a liquid poem of life, nutrients, breath. That pulse, that rush, it is the movement of water remembering its purpose, carry, connect, nourish, cleanse. Even in tears, water holds emotion. Joy, sorrow, relief, all expressed with the same simple molecules shaped by the body, shaped by feeling. The salt in those tears comes from the ancient ocean that still echoes in our blood. We carry the sea within us. So when you sip from a cup, when you watch rainfall, when you feel mist on your face or steam on your skin, remember. You are touching something older than memory, something that has travelled through time, through stars, through the breath of trees and the bones of whales. Water has no home, because it is home. It is never just one thing, it is always becoming. In every molecule there is a story, and each time you touch it, it whispers something soft. I was here before you. I will be hereafter. I move, I hold, I change, and in that motion you are part of me. Now let the story soften into its final shape, like the last ripple settling on the surface of a pond. We have followed water from clouds to cells, from glaciers to breath, but there is still something more, something quieter, that water teaches us. It teaches us how to let go. Watch a stream and you'll see it never clings to what it touches. It brushes past stone, wraps around roots, flows over fallen leaves, and keeps moving. It does not demand to stay. It does not mourn what it leaves behind. It simply carries onward, finding the path of least resistance and making beauty out of surrender. That might be why water has always felt spiritual to humans. We bathe in it to feel clean. We cry when we're overwhelmed. We gather at rivers, lakes, oceans, not just for survival, but for something else, something we don't always have words for. There's comfort in watching water move, feeling that life is still flowing even when we feel stuck, that time is passing even when the clock is silent. Water becomes our mirror, not of our face, but of our emotions, our memories, our dreams. In Japanese, there's a word, nagare. It means flow, but it also means impermanence, the soft truth that everything changes. And water is the most honest symbol of that truth. Try to hold it in your hands and it slips through. Try to stop it and it finds another way. And yet in that fleetingness, there is peace. Water does not resist its nature. It embraces change. Maybe we're meant to learn from that. There is also the quiet science of water's cycles. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation, infiltration. These are not just processes in a textbook. They are lullabies of the earth. Each step in the cycle is a breath in the planet's body. Water rises like hope, falls like grace, sinks like memory. The same molecule may travel from ocean to cloud to soil to tree to you and still be the same, still be water, still be home. Some of the oldest water on Earth is locked inside minerals deep in the mantle. Scientists believe it may be billions of years old, untouched since the Earth formed. It waits there in silence, hidden in crystal structures, sleeping like a dream within stone. One day a volcano may set it free, turning it into steam, sending it skyward to join the clouds again. Even that ancient water will one day fall as rain. And beyond Earth, water tells stories too. On distant moons like Europa and Enceladus, beneath thick shells of ice, scientists believe oceans may churn. These waters, untouched by sun or may still hold life. Tiny, floating, dreaming life. It is the idea that water, wherever it exists, carries the possibility of awakening. The universe is vast, but water is its quiet invitation. Come closer, look deeper, listen. In this way, water links us not just to our planet, but to everything. It binds us across time and space. The water in your tea may once have risen as steam from a jungle, or frozen on the horn of a glacier goat. It may have fallen as rain on a field long gone, or pooled in a footprint of some creature that never had a name, and now it is in you, flowing, moving, becoming. Water even has a voice, not one you can always hear, but one you can feel. The rush of waves, the hush of snowfall, the tick of a leak in the night, the rhythmic slap of waves against a dock. Each sound tells a different version of the same story. I am here. I am moving. I am part of everything. In old stories, rivers were gods, springs were sacred, wells were wishes, and maybe, without knowing it, we still believe. When we stand by the sea and feel something stir inside us, when we stare at the rain and feel quieter, when we hold someone's hand and feel the warmth of water between us, it is not just science, it is not just chemistry, it is memory without words. And when water leaves us, when it dries from the skin, when tears fade, when steam vanishes, it is not truly gone. It has only changed form. It has moved forward, just like moments do, just like we do. That is the final lesson water offers, the strength to change and the gentleness to do so without fear. So tonight, as the world grows still and the stars return, imagine a single droplet resting on a leaf. It has travelled for centuries, passed through clouds and soil and bodies and wind, only to arrive here in this quiet. It glows faintly in the light of the moon. It trembles with unseen motion. Inside, its molecules still dance, still bond and release, still whisper to one another in a language older than thought. That droplet does not know where it will go next. It may fall, or it may rise, it may slip into the earth or ride the breeze skyward. But it does not worry. It trusts the motion. It trusts the change. That's what water does. That's what we can do too. So sleep now with that image in your heart. A water droplet at dawn trembling in the new light, holding the memory of oceans and the promise of rain. It is not lost. It is becoming. Always becoming. High in the silence where clouds brush the jagged bones of the earth, a river begins. It does not roar or rush. Not yet. It starts as a trickle, a silver thought melting from ancient snow, slipping out of stone. This is the breath of a mountain, exhaled in drops, and with every drip a story begins. The mountain gives its memory to water, and the water carries it away. Mountains are not still, though they appear to be. They shift in slow motion, rise over centuries, rumble grain by grain. Their peaks catch wind and sun, their slopes cradle ice, and that ice is where the river begins, not as water, but as sleep, a frozen memory held tight. When warmed by the sunlight, the glacier does not protest. It simply lets go, one drop, then another, and another, until 1,000 years of winter begins to move. Each drop that falls from the melting edge is filled with the mountain's voice. Minerals broken from stone, dust caught in snow, whispers of lichen and wind. This is not just water, it is history liquefied, and as it gathers into trickles, then threads, then streams, it begins its long descent. Gravity calls and the river answers, flowing not in haste, but in rhythm. At first it hugs the rocks tightly. It does not know its shape yet. It learns by touching this slope, that bend, that fallen pine. The river is young, but not foolish. It listens, it watches. It flows not just downward, but inward, into the spaces carved by time. It memorizes the land as it passes, taking small pieces of it along. Sand, pebbles, the green scent of moss. These are its notes, its fragments, its first lines of a poem still being written. The valley deepens, trees appear, the air thickens with birdsong. The river too grows fuller. Tributaries join, other meltwaters, other memories. Each one brings its own story. A different slope, a different rock, a different snowflake that once fell in silence. The river doesn't forget. It folds each contribution into its current. It becomes many rivers, all flowing as one. There's something soft about how a river touches land. It does not slash. It does not tear. It caresses. But make no mistake, this caress has power. Given time, the river will carve canyons. It will sculpt stone like clay, not through force, but through patience. Over decades and centuries it wears the mountain down, not because it wants to destroy, but because that is how memory moves. It doesn't stay where it was born, it travels, it transforms. As it winds through valleys, the river becomes more than water. It becomes mirror. It reflects sky and bird and leaf. Children see themselves in it. Animals come to drink. Insects skim its surface, dancing like light-made flesh. The river doesn't ask for thanks. It simply continues. Carrying cold from the peaks to the warmth of the lowlands, stitching ecosystems together with invisible thread. Sometimes the river floods, not out of anger, but because it has more memory than it can hold. Rain comes and the banks overflow. The water spreads across fields and roots and stones. It leaves behind silt, rich with stories. This silt feeds the soil. It makes green things grow. Even in its wildest moments, the river gives. And in drought, when the river thins, its voice grows quieter. But it doesn't vanish. It hides beneath gravel, in underground tunnels, in roots that reach deep. It waits. The mountain's memory is never truly gone. It only rests. It will rise again when the rains return, when the snow melts once more. This is the rhythm. This is the promise. The people who live near rivers have always known their power. They build homes on their banks, whisper prayers into their flow. They give them names, sacred names, names that sound like songs, because a river is not just a place, it is a presence. It brings life, it remembers death, it washes clean. It hums beneath bridges and over stones, speaking a language older than any book. And the river never travels alone. It carries not just water, but particles of the mountain itself. Grains of quartz, flecks of mica, hints of iron and salt. These settle as the river slows, layering in estuaries and deltas, building new land from the bones of the old. So the river doesn't just remember the mountain, it becomes it. Spread thin, made fertile, given back to the world. At dawn the river glows. Light slides across its skin like breath on glass. You can almost see the memory moving, ripples chasing one another, reflections trembling in the hush. Somewhere far upstream, a glacier sighs. Somewhere far downstream, reeds sway. And in between, the river holds it all. The beginning, the becoming, the endless now. To follow a river is to walk through time. Each bend is a chapter. Each rapid is a heartbeat. Each pool is a pause. And though you may walk beside it for only a while, the river continues. Long after footsteps fade, it flows, telling the same story in 1,000 different ways. The story of a mountain's gift, the story of how memory moves. Let's follow the river further, as it leaves behind the sharp teeth of the mountains and enters a gentler world. The land opens and the river widens. It begins to curve more, meandering like a thought trying to remember a dream. Here the river slows, not because it is tired, but because it is thoughtful. In every bend, it pauses. In every eddy, it reflects. It carries with it not just silt and stones, but echoes. The sound of wind across snowfields, the hush of pine forests, the tumble of icy waterfalls. These remain within it, softened by distance but still alive. The river begins to pass through villages now. It slips under wooden bridges, past laundry hung on lines, beside footsteps and firelight. People gather at its edge, not just to draw water, but to feel close to something ancient. They send lanterns down the river during festivals, as if asking it to carry their wishes far away. And the river does. It carries everything: hopes, ashes, lost things, fallen leaves. It never stops to ask why, it simply holds and moves. Beneath the surface, the current is busier than it seems. Water moves in layers, fast above, slow below. In those layers, life stirs. Fish dart through shadows, roots drink silently. Microscopic organisms drift in a hidden world, unseen but essential. Even when it looks calm, the river is alive with motion. It is always rearranging itself, shaping its own path grain by grain. It learns the land by touching it. It teaches the land by wearing it smooth. In floodplains, the river stretches wide like a yawn. During spring melt or heavy rain, it spills gently over its banks, whispering across grass and grove. This is not destruction, it is renewal. The water leaves behind new layers of earth, rich with minerals and memory. Crops planted here grow stronger, nourished by the stories of distant peaks, and when the river recedes, it leaves behind not scars but promise. Trees grow along the banks, drawn by the quiet guarantee of water. Their roots reach down like hands. Willows bend low, dipping their leaves into the stream. Cottonwoods shimmer in the breeze, echoing the sound of water in their rustling. These trees remember floods, they remember droughts. Their rings hold the rhythm of years, and still they lean toward the river, as if listening for something only water can say. There are animals that follow the river too, deer who come to drink at dusk, herons who step carefully through the shallows, frogs who sing under the moon. Their lives weave into the river's life. Their tracks vanish into the mud but remain in the memory of the place. The river doesn't speak in words, but it knows. It remembers every ripple, every crossing, every breath shared with the land. Even the air near a river feels different. Cooler, damper, tinged with life. You can feel it on your skin, the way it softens your breath, quiets your thoughts. There is something ancient in that feeling, something that touches the animal part of us. We may live in cities, surrounded by walls and wires, but rivers still call to something older in our blood. We came from water. We are drawn to it still. In some places, the river carries sacred meaning. It becomes more than geography. It becomes spirit. People offer flowers, coins, prayers. They ask for forgiveness, for blessings, for rebirth. The river accepts it all. It judges nothing. It flows over joy and grief alike, smoothing the edges, carrying both away into the same sea. In that way, it teaches us that everything belongs, that nothing needs to be held forever, that moving on can be gentle. As the river nears the lowlands, it begins to split. It braids itself like hair, forming islands and inlets. Channels twist away, then return. This is the river sharing itself, becoming many, becoming generous. It is no longer narrow and urgent. It is wide and wise. It carries the same water, but its purpose has changed. It no longer cuts, it comforts. It no longer climbs, it offers. And with every mile, the river carries more than it was given. Nutrients from forest floors, pollen from spring blooms, songs of migrating birds. The river becomes a thread tying ecosystems together. It is not just a route, it is a rhythm. Plants grow where it goes, insects hatch when it swells. Even the moon listens to its pull, drawing tides upward when the river meets the sea. Somewhere along its banks, an old tree leans out. Its roots, half exposed, grip the earth like memory holding on. The river has touched these roots 1,000 times. It has seen this tree in sun and snow, in drought and flood. And though the tree has changed, the river still recognizes it. Because rivers remember, not just with molecules, but with presence, with the way they return, with the way they notice. In delta regions, the river becomes something new, slower, broader, full of life. Here it is no longer a road, it is a home. Fish spawn in its calm shallows, birds nest in the reeds, people fish and sing and sleep beside its whisper. The river has travelled far, but its journey is not over. Even now, as it spreads into wetlands and bays, it is still telling the same story. I came from the mountains, I carry their memory. I give it to you now. This is how rivers remember the mountains. Not by holding still, but by moving forward. Not by freezing the past, but by blending it into the present. Every drop that touches your hand, every stream you cross, holds the story of something far away, something ancient, something tall and cold and powerful that melted into softness and began to flow. And in that flow, the story lives on. The river does not end when it meets the sea. That is only what it looks like. To the eye, it seems the journey is over, that the river gives itself up, swallowed by something larger. But in truth, it becomes part of something wider. The sea does not erase the river. It accepts it, absorbs it, welcomes it home, and in that merging, the memory continues. Salt and fresh swirl together. Stories mix. The mountain's whisper becomes part of the ocean's endless song. As the river reaches its delta, it slows almost to stillness. It spreads itself thin, letting go of urgency, offering its waters to roots and reeds and tide pools. This is where the river begins to dissolve, not in loss, but in giving. Here it becomes mist and it becomes current, it becomes silence. And in the hush of those shallow marshes, the memory of stone still lingers, carried in every molecule, every shimmer, every breath of rising fog. At sunrise, the estuary glows gold. Light touches the water gently, and you can see it. Dozens of streams crossing, feeding into one another, braiding like old stories. Fish leap, birds call, the surface ripples like a sleeping thought. The river has changed form, but not essence. It still moves, it still remembers. Now it moves in waves, in tides, in wind-blown sheets across the shore. It becomes ocean, but inside the ocean the river still lives. The water that began as snow in the mountains now touches coral, seaweed, ships, whales. It sinks and rises with the tide. It journeys further still. Some of it evaporates into the sky, beginning the cycle anew. Some freezes in polar ice, some becomes part of rain clouds that drift across continents, returning eventually to the earth to begin again. The river's story is a circle, not a line. It folds back into itself endlessly. Even far from rivers, even in dry places, that memory arrives. In the breath of a storm, in a drop of morning dew, in the coolness of shade. Water travels. It carries the scent of pine, the dust of cliffs, the hush of snow. It falls on deserts and cities alike, and when it falls, the earth responds. Soil softens, seeds stir, skin opens. The land remembers the river, even when it cannot see it. Beneath our feet, old rivers still sleep. Subterranean streams curl through rock, forgotten channels that once flowed above ground. Their paths are still there, carved in the stone, waiting. And sometimes during flood or quake they return. Water remembers where it once belonged. It will always try to find its way back. In our own bodies, the river echoes. Blood flows in vessels like streams through valleys. Our hearts beat like rapids. Our breath rises and falls like tide. Even our tears follow gravity, running down in rivulets. We are walking rivers, made from memory and motion. The salt in our sweat, the rhythm in our pulse. It all speaks the same ancient language. Flow, return, become. Elders in many cultures have said that to follow a river is to understand life, that the path it takes, full of twists, floods, stillness and merging, is the same as our own. We begin somewhere quiet, we gather moments, we change, we offer ourselves, and eventually we return to the great sea of everything. We are shaped by what we pass through, but we also shape it in return. A river teaches humility. It reminds us that small things over the time can move mountains, that gentleness is not weakness, that surrender is not failure. It reminds us that motion can be sacred, that even as we move forward, we carry the past with us, softened, filtered, alive. The river does not forget the mountain. It transforms it. It brings it to fields, to oceans, to rain clouds. And maybe that's what we're meant to do. Take what shaped us, carry it with grace, and let it nourish the world beyond us. So next time you stand beside a river, whether it's a wild stream rushing over the boulders or a quiet creek curling through reeds, listen. Listen not just with your ears, but with your bones. The sound you hear is more than water. It is the sound of time, of change, of memory in motion. That sound has been flowing for millions of years. It flowed before you were born. It will flow long after. But right now, in this moment, it flows with you. And in that joining, something sacred happens. You become part of the river, just as it once was part of a mountain, just as it will one day be part of the rain. Nothing is ever truly gone. It only moves. It only changes form. This is how rivers remember the mountains, not by holding on, but by letting go, not by staying, but by moving. And in that endless movement, the memory lives on. High above the trees and rooftops, where birds drift and sunlight fades into blue, there lives a world most people never touch. It floats in plain sight, yet remains out of reach. A sky woven with vapour, a sea made of air. This is the kingdom of clouds. From the ground they appear soft, slow, harmless. But inside each one is a pulse, a breath, a secret motion. A cloud is not a thing, it is a process, a bisbang, a whisper in transition. A cloud begins where warmth meets rising. The sun warms the earth and the earth warms the air. That air, now lighter and restless, begins to rise. It carries with it invisible water, molecules suspended in the breath of soil, the exhale of leaves, the sigh of rivers. This vapour floats upward, climbing into thinner, colder air. And as it rises, it cools, it slows. The molecules gather closer, pulled by a quiet agreement. Condensation begins, not as rain, not yet, but as mist, as memory finding form. The first hint of a cloud is not grand. It is a suggestion, a shimmer, a smudge of softness against the blue. But within that smudge are trillions of droplets, each less than the width of a hair. They cling to tiny specks of dust, salt, or pollen, what scientists call condensation nuclei. Without these little seeds, clouds could not grow. Even the sky needs something to hold on to. As more vapour condenses, the cloud thickens. It becomes visible. A shape appears. Not fixed, not final, but alive. No two clouds are the same. They twist and stretch with the wind. They bloom like slow explosions. They melt like dreams. Some rise like towers, others spill like silk. A cloud is a sculpture made of motion. It is not still for even a second. Inside there is constant conversation. Droplets bump into each other, merge, split. Ice crystals form and fall, evaporate and rise again. It is a dance of phase and form. Some droplets grow heavier, pulled gently down. Some stay suspended for hours, days, carried on invisible highways of air. Every cloud is full of movement, even when it seems frozen. There are names for clouds, scientific ones, poetic ones. Cirrus, the feathers high above. Cumulus, the cotton puffs of summer. Stratus, the grey blankets that veil the morning. Nimbus, the bringers of rain, but names can only point. They cannot contain, because clouds are always changing. They are a language the sky speaks in real time, each word vanishing the moment it's said. To lie on your back and watch clouds is to listen to the earth breathing. They swell and shrink, drift and disappear. Shapes form and vanish, a dragon, a ship, a heart. Your mind fills in the blanks, but the sky doesn't need stories. It already is one. A slow unfolding story of water's journey through air. And that journey is not aimless. Clouds have purpose. They are carriers, couriers of moisture. Bridges between oceans and land. What evaporates from a wave in the Pacific may fall weeks later on a field of wheat. What rises from a forest may travel 1,000 miles before becoming snow. The path is not always known, but it is always connected. A global loop of vapour and return. In tropical places, clouds rise like breath from the sea, tall and white and full of thunder. They build throughout the day, fed by heat, and by evening they release their rain in sudden applause. In polar regions, clouds drift low and slow, quiet as frost. In deserts, clouds are rare, and when they come, they are watched like miracles. No matter where they are, clouds are reminders. Something invisible has become visible again. To stand inside a cloud on a misty mountain, perhaps, is to feel the breath of the world on your skin. The droplets are too small to see, but they collect on your eyelashes, your hair, your coat. You are not just in the air, you are in the heart of water returning. And in that cool, damp silence something ancient stirs, a feeling that you are inside a thought, or perhaps a dream. Pilots know that flying through clouds is not empty. It is like moving through milk, soft and dense. Instruments must guide the plane, for the eye can see nothing. Inside a cloud, the horizon disappears. Time slows. The outside world is erased. Only the motion remains, and still, above and below, the sky continues. The cloud does not block it. It simply blurs the line. From satellites, clouds look like continents of vapor drifting across the blue planet. They pulse with storms, spin into cyclones, stretch into rivers of mist. Entire weather systems begin with a single puff of rising air. That puff grows, joins others, feeds on heat and motion, until it becomes a force that shapes coastlines and seasons. A hurricane is born from the same breath that forms morning fog. And yet clouds can be gentle too. They are the soft cover of sleep, the hush of an overcast day, the glow that catches fire at sunset. They reflect light, cool the ground, paint the sky in watercolour. They are the skin between space and earth. Not solid, not liquid, but something in between, something always becoming. Children chase them, poets name them, artists paint them. But the clouds do not mind. They go on forming, shifting, giving. They do not stay, they do not cling. They are born of letting go. They rise because something was released. And they disappear when it is time. So next time you look up and see a cloud, bright or dark, towering or thin, remember this. Inside it is water once touched by tree and sea and skin. Inside it is the breath of the world made visible for a moment that will pass. But in that passing something is shared, something returns. The breath inside each cloud is not just sky, it is story. Let's drift deeper into the sky, into the unseen world inside each cloud. Imagine the air high above you, layered and flowing like invisible rivers. This is where clouds live, not in one place but moving always, sculpted by the winds. They are not passengers, they are part of the sky's breath, formed by it, shaped by it, and reshaping it in return. The breath inside each cloud is not simple air. It is air heavy with memory, filled with tiny droplets that hold heat, motion, and story. Inside the cloud there is balance. Between rising and falling, between cold and warmth, between invisible vapour and visible form. When water vapour rises and cools, it becomes a droplet. But not all droplets are the same. Some are light enough to hover. Some grow heavier, merging with others, waiting for just the right moment to fall. That moment comes when the cloud can no longer hold what it carries. And that is when rain begins, not as a decision, but as a release. Raindrops do not fall all at once. They begin as whispers, scattered and soft. A few at first, then more. They gather weight, shaped by the sky and slowed by air. They fall through warmth and wind, sometimes twisting, sometimes straight. And as they fall, they gather stories, pollen, dust, even microscopic life. Some raindrops may carry bacteria that once floated on the breeze. Some may have formed around particles from a volcano or a desert far away. Each drop is a traveller. But not all clouds release rain. Some hold their breath longer. They drift and shimmer, catching light, shaping shadows. High cirrus clouds made of ice crystals tell of cold winds above. Low stratus clouds stretch across the sky like blankets, dimming the day. Cumulus clouds puff and swell with summer warmth. They are signs, clues. Each one a message from the atmosphere about what the earth is feeling. Heat, pressure, motion, translated into shape and drift. When the sun rises or sets, clouds catch the light. Not just white, but rose, gold, lavender, flame. Their edges glow, their bellies deepen in colour. It is not the clouds themselves that sheen but the way they scatter sunlight. Blue light bends one way, red another. At dawn and dusk, the angle of the sun makes colour bloom across the sky. This is not decoration. It is physics dressed in poetry. At night, clouds carry the glow of cities, reflecting it back down. They make the sky feel close, almost touchable. In rural places, where lights are few, clouds vanish into the dark and the stars shine through. The sky changes with the clouds, and the clouds change with the sky. It is a soft conversation that never stops. Clouds also carry temperature. They trap warmth like a blanket around the earth. Without them, nights would be colder, days would burn brighter. With them, the heat of the sun is softened, spread, shared. They regulate the breath of the planet, not just as decoration, but as function. And the more water the air holds, the more clouds it can make. This is why humid days feel heavy. The air is already full of invisible droplets, waiting to become visible again. In rainforests, the air is thick with vapor. Trees exhale moisture through their leaves in a process called transpiration. This moisture joins the warm air rising from the ground, forming clouds above the canopy. In this way, forests help make their own weather. They cool the rain, they breathe out, and the sky breathes back in. Clouds are the reply. In cities, clouds form differently. The heat from buildings and pavement rises, lifting moisture higher. Pollution can give the vapor something to cling to. The result is sometimes a haze, sometimes a storm. Urban clouds carry not only moisture, but the fingerprint of the people below. They are shaped by streets and skylines, by traffic and temperature. Even our choices rise and drift. In deserts, clouds are rare, but unforgettable. A single puff in the sky can change the mood of the land. Shadows stretch, eyes lift, a breeze stirs. People who live in dry places learn to read the clouds like prophets, watching their edges, their movement, their colour. Will it rain? Will it pass? The cloud holds the answer, but never says it aloud. There are also clouds that never touch earth. Noctilucent clouds, high in the mesosphere, glow in twilight. They are made of ice crystals, so high that sunlight still reaches them even after sunset. They shine with a faint blue light, rare and otherworldly. These clouds are not part of weather, but part of wonder. They remind us that the sky is not empty, it is layered, living, luminous. And within every layer, clouds are working. They are not passive. They transport moisture, energy, and heat across continents. They shape weather, and through it, they shape lives. A single cloudburst can flood a valley. A week without clouds can dry up a harvest. A fog can delay flights, or soften a sunrise. They seem soft, but they are powerful, not in spite of their gentleness, but because of it. Birds fly through clouds, planes pass through them, satellites look down upon them. But most of us only watch from below, and in that watching something stirs. A memory maybe, a calm, a sense that time has slowed. Because clouds remind us of breath. They come and go, they expand and fade. They fill the sky, then empty it. Just like lungs, just like thought. Even children feel it. They lie on grass and point upward. That one looks like a whale, that one like a castle. Their minds reach up, filling the space between shapes with imagination. The clouds invite it. They do not stay long enough to correct us. They let us wonder. They let us see what we need to see. In every religion, in every story, the sky holds meaning. And clouds are often part of that meaning. They hide gods, they carry messages, they veil and reveal. Maybe it's because they remind us that even the heavens change, that nothing is fixed, that even light has to pass through mist before it can reach us. So when you look up at the next cloud that drifts across your sky, take a moment. Imagine the breath inside it. Not just the air, but the water that once rested in a leaf, in a lake, on a cheek. The water that rose quietly, carried by wind, gathered with others and took on shape. That breath is now a cloud. And one day it will fall again, as rain, as snow, as fog, and begin again. Now let us descend gently with the cloud as it begins to break apart, drifting toward its end not in silence but in surrender. A cloud does not vanish, it transforms. As the droplets within it grow heavy enough, gravity begins to cool, the cloud lets go. Raindrops begin to fall, not all at once but patiently, each one shaped by the journey it's taken. This is the breath exhaled. The cloud is no longer a dream in the sky. It becomes presence on the earth. Rain begins quietly, it taps the leaves, dots the skin, gathers in hollows. And each drop is not just water, it is memory returning. This water once rose as vapour, warmed by sun, lifted by breeze. It met others in the sky and held together in a delicate balance. And now it falls back down to begin again. A cloud, in releasing its rain, does not disappear. It fulfills its purpose. Some of this rain will slip into soil where roots reach upward to meet it. Some will gather into puddles, reflecting faces and branches and streetlights. Some will run off into creeks and streams, beginning a long journey back to river and sea. And some, in the quietest corners, will sit still, evaporating slowly back into the air. The cycle never breaks. The cloud does not end, it continues. After the rain there is a hush. The air is heavier, closer. The sky begins to clear slowly as sunlight returns and mist lifts, but the memory of the cloud lingers, on windows, in the scent of wet earth, in the sound of dripping from branches. Even in the calm you can feel that something passed through, something ancient, something soft and something vital. Clouds shape more than weather. They shape mood. A sky full of thick grey clouds can make the world feel slower, quieter. People move differently. Voices soften. A sense of waiting settles in. And then, when the clouds break and sunlight pours through, there's a kind of release, a collective breath. That light feels warmer for having been withheld. The absence makes it sweeter. In mountainous places, clouds curl through valleys, touching the ground like low fog. In those moments, the line between earth and sky blurs. You can walk through a cloud, feel it on your face. It clings to eyelashes, fills lungs with cool dampness. It is not just something above, it is around you, inside you. A reminder that what rises also returns. In forests, clouds feed the land. Mist and fog drift through branches, condensing on leaves, dripping down to roots. This is called cloud forest moisture, a quiet rain that never falls, a gift from the air itself. Some ecosystems depend on this gentle, constant offering. The trees hold the cloud feeds the trees. Together they breathe. Even our imaginations are shaped by clouds. We look to them for signs of storms coming, of peace settling, of seasons turning. A sky filled with towering cumulonimbus tells of power. A thin veil of cirrostratus hints at change. Farmers, sailors, dreamers, all have learned to read the sky like a book. And clouds are its language. There are clouds made by fire, pyrocumulus clouds that rise from wildfires or volcanoes, carrying ash and heat into the sky. These clouds are born not of rain but of flame. They show how deeply connected the earth and sky are, how heat can become motion, how motion becomes cloud, how cloud becomes rain that cools the fire it came from. The sky listens to the ground, the cloud responds. And then there are clouds we make ourselves, vapour trails behind airplanes, cooling towers releasing plumes of steam, urban heat mixing with moisture to make haze. Even our machines breathe, even our industry exhales, and in doing so it changes the sky. Not all clouds are gentle, not all are kind, but they all carry truth. They show us what we have sent upward, what we have become part of. Still, no matter their origin, all clouds participate in the cycle. Water, in its many forms, always finds a way back to balance. And that balance depends on the breath of clouds, their rise, their drift, their letting go. Without clouds, the planet would be harsh and uneven. With them, we are cooled, watered, sheltered, reminded. Inside your own breath, there is water once touched by cloud. Every inhale carries molecules that once danced in the sky, curled through mist, fell as rain. You are not separate from the sky. You are shaped by it. The rhythm of breath, the feeling of cool air, the moisture on your tongue, all carry the echo of clouds. So next time you look up at the sky, whether it's filled with thunderheads or streaked with pink, know that you're looking not at a distant object but a passing thought, a sky thought, a water dream, a breath that has travelled farther than you can imagine, only to appear for a moment above your head, glowing, moving, changing. The cloud is not just a container of rain, it is a symbol of impermanence, a teacher of softness, a vessel of return. It rises without effort, forms without boundary, gives without regret, and when its purpose is fulfilled it fades, but never ends. This is the breath inside each cloud, to rise, to gather, to give, and to vanish, and in doing so to begin again, always again. At night, when the wind softens and the stars begin to whisper, the oceans do not sleep, but they seem to dream. Their surface still shivers with motion, but their voice becomes lower, deeper, almost silent. This is the ocean beneath the moon, a vast dark mirror stretching across the planet, holding the sky in its curved arms. It is not empty, it is never still, but in the moonlight the sea takes on another rhythm, one not shaped by storms or sun, but by the soft tug of gravity, by the ancient dance between Earth and its silver companion in the sky. The moon does not shine its own light. It reflects the sun's gift, bent gently toward us. But its pull is real, steady, faithful, tireless. It reaches across space and pulls at the oceans, lifting them not with hands but with presence. The tide rises, the tide falls, and the sea obeys, not as a servant, but as a partner in the oldest waltz on Earth. Twice each day the waters lean toward the moon, and then away. They breathe in and out, pulled not by air but by distance. Tides are not just waves. They are the heartbeat of the ocean, slow and vast. They shape every coastline, flood every marsh, retreat from every rock. They carry nutrients inland, whisper to coral reefs, cradle the eggs of shorebirds. In mangroves, the trees time their fruit to the tides. In salt marshes, crabs and eels and herons all move in rhythm. The ocean sleeps, but even in its sleep, it listens to the moon. Beneath the surface, the water moves not just up and down, but in great curling spirals. Currents shift and turn, nudged by the turning of the earth, warmed by the sun, pulled by the moon. These currents carry life across entire oceans. A single plankton may drift from one hemisphere to another in its lifetime. A young eel may ride the Gulf Stream for thousands of miles before returning to the river it came from. The ocean is not a place, it is a path. At night, that path glows. In tropical waters, bioluminescent creatures drift near the surface. When stirred, they shine with cold fire, tiny sparks of light from fish, algae, jelly. The sea glows blue where waves break, where boats pass, where swimmers reach out. It is not a trick of light, it is life revealing itself. This is the ocean dreaming with open eyes, and deeper still, far beneath the moonlight, is a world without sun. The deep sea. Here the water is cold, the pressure immense, but even in this blackness, life moves. Creatures that create their own glow, fish with translucent skin, shrimp that flash like stars, squid that send pulses of light down their arms. It is a sky turned upside down, a galaxy of movement in liquid darkness. The moon's pull reaches here too, in subtle ways, in currents we can barely measure. In timing we are only beginning to understand. Some species spawn with the full moon, others migrate with the changing tide. Coral reefs release their eggs in massive synchronized blooms, triggered by moonlight filtered through waves. The moon is a clock without ticking, marking the passing of invisible time. And on the shore, the moon draws us too. People walk beaches under its glow, they stare out into the endless black and feel something stir. Maybe it's memory. Maybe it's longing. The ocean at night is both a mirror and a mystery. It reflects the moon, but it also hides its own face. You cannot see where it ends. You can only hear it breathing, softly, softly, on the sand. The sand itself is shaped by tides. Grains moved grain by grain, sculpted into ridges and ripples. Shells carried in, left behind. Tiny creatures leave trails in the damp shoreline. And all of it changes with the pull of the moon. No beach is the same 2 nights in a row. The tide comes in, the tide goes out, and with it, the edge of the world redraws itself. To sleep by the ocean is to feel the moon's rhythm in your bones. The sound of waves rising and falling is not random. It is timed by gravity, by orbit, by ancient motion. Long before clocks or calendars, humans marked time by the tides. The pull of the moon told them when to fish, when to plant, when to rest. Even now, something in us responds. We are mostly water, and water remembers. There is a peace in the nighttime sea, a vastness that humbles, a hush that quiets the mind. Daylight brings reflection, sparkle, motion. But night brings depth. The sea no longer shows its surface. It holds its secrets close. The moon rides overhead like a sentinel, watching not with eyes, but with pull. And the ocean leans toward it over and over again. This leaning is not submission, it is devotion. The earth spins, the moon circles, and the oceans respond with motion. It is a relationship without words, without light, but full of touch. A soft force that moves water across continents, lifts boats, shapes cliffs. Without the moon, the oceans would not dance. Without the oceans, the moon would shine over silence. And so they move together. Not in noise, but in pattern. Not in bursts, but in breath. And we, watching from the shore, are part of that motion. We come and go, rise and rest, shaped by the same forces, the same light, the same tide, the same dream. Let us drift now into the deeper currents of the sea, where the moon's influence becomes more than just surface waves. Here the water moves in layers, in silence, in ancient patterns that trace the shape of time itself. The ocean, after all, is not flat. It is a world of hills and valleys, trenches and ridges, canyons that make mountains look small. And through all of it the water flows, pulled by heat, by wind, by salt, and always by the quiet hand of the moon. The moon's pull doesn't stop at the surface, it presses through every drop down to the deepest places. It causes bulges in the ocean, tides, yes, but also internal waves, slow and steady, invisible unless you are looking for them. These waves move not across the top of the sea, but through its heart, shifting boundaries between cold and warm, between salt and fresh, between what rises and what sinks. Scientists call it stratification, but the ocean knows it simply as balance. In these shifting layers live creatures that few have ever seen. Some float on the edge between light and dark, following the sun up by day and down by night. Others dwell in the true deep, where no light from the moon or stars can reach, yet even there life obeys the pull of tides. Even there the moon's invisible thread moves through the dark like a lullaby made of gravity. And gravity is not the only force. There is also the memory of motion. Water that was warmed near the equator drifts toward the poles, cooling, sinking, looping through the planet in what we call the global conveyor belt. It is a slow, steady current that can take 1,000 years to complete a full circuit. A single molecule of water might pass through the Indian Ocean, the Arctic, the Atlantic, and back again, carrying with it the breath of countless waves, the heat of countless suns, the salt of countless shores. This movement is not random. It is the earth breathing through water. And at night, when the moon rises, the breathing deepens. The tides pull harder. The waves stretch farther. The currents shift their edges, and somewhere in that invisible motion, coral polyps begin to bloom. Microscopic eggs are released into the water. Whales adjust their paths. Even the tiniest fish swim differently. In certain places, called tidal bores, the tide comes in as a wall, a single wave travelling upstream against the flow of the river. It roars like thunder, rising several feet high, turning the quiet into motion. And in that wall of water is the moon's strength, gentle from afar, powerful up close. People travel from around the world to watch these tides arrive. They feel something ancient in it, something that speaks not just to the mind, but to the body. The moon's power is quiet, but it shapes everything. It even stabilizes the tilt of the earth. Without it, our seasons would shift wildly, our nights would be darker, our oceans less predictable. The moon is not just a light in the sky. It is an anchor, a keeper of rhythm, a protector of balance. And the ocean responds not only with tides, but with song. Whales sing across miles of water, their calls bending through current and pressure. Dolphins click and whistle, shrimp snap, fish drum, even the reef itself makes sound, faint crackles and hums, like static wrapped in silk. At night, those songs travel farther, undisturbed by thunderstorms moving like lullabies through liquid air. The sea is not silent. It never was. Along the coast, the moon pulls the sea up the shore, then lets it fall back. This rising and falling marks time in salt and foam. Sea turtles crawl out during certain moon phases to lay their eggs. Horseshoe crabs gather by the thousands under full moons. Fishermen time their nets, sailors their routes, farmers their fields by the tug of tide. The moon is not just above us. It is within our rituals, our rhythms, our rest. Children building sandcastles watch their walls melt into the sea. They laugh, rebuild, and watch again. But the tide doesn't erase to punish. It returns to remind. Nothing stays. Everything moves. Even the shore is temporary, redrawn every night. Yet life adapts. Dunes shift. Crabs burrow deeper. Seeds root higher. The edge of the world breathes. Far from land, in the open ocean, the moonlight paints silver trails across the surface. Sailors used to navigate by those lines. They believed they pointed toward home, and perhaps in a way they do, for home is not just a place, it is a pattern, a rhythm, a returning. And the moon, through the ocean, gives us that. A signal in the dark, a promise that the sea will rise and fall again. In myth, the moon is often seen as feminine, gentle, mysterious, changing. And the ocean too is spoken of as a woman, deep, powerful, unpredictable, nurturing. Perhaps it is no accident. The moon pulls at the ocean like one soul reaching for another, and the ocean responds not with resistance but with movement. The two are separate but bound, light and water, touch and surrender. And all this happens while the world sleeps, while the streets grow quiet and lights blink out one by one. While people dream, the ocean continues. It rocks the world in its arms, sways with the moon's touch, sings without voice, and in the morning, when the tide has changed and the shore is wet again, it leaves behind its message, not in words but in ripples and shells and sand rearranged. To understand the ocean beneath the moon is to understand stillness inside motion, silence inside sound, softness inside strength. It is to know that even the largest things on earth can be moved by light, that even something as vast as the sea answers to something as distant as the moon, and that maybe we do too. Now let the ocean settle into its final rhythm beneath the fading night. The moon, once high and silver, begins its slow descent, and the water mirrors its hush. The tide has turned, the waves draw back, but the story doesn't end. It continues, as all ocean stories do, not in climax but in continuation. The sea beneath the moon teaches us not about arrivals but about return, not about urgency but about presence. In the soft part of the night before dawn, the ocean breathes in the gentlest way. You can almost feel it exhale. There is a time just before sunrise when the sea appears endless and flat, like a breath held. The moon still clings to the sky, pale and ghostly, while the first warmth of morning waits just below the horizon. This is the moment when the water is most honest, between dark and light, between tide and tide, between sound and stillness. The creatures that live in its depths know this time. Nocturnal fish begin to sink, day-dwellers rise, coral polyps retreat. The hush is not empty, it is transition. This twilight sea holds more than water. It holds the memory of the night. It has carried the reflections of constellations, echoed the calls of whales, pulled softly at ships anchored in harbours. It has rocked floating kelp beds, tickled sea foam across smooth sand. And now, as light returns, it prepares to give all of that back, to the wind, to the sun, to the day. The ocean, like the moon, is not here to keep. It is here to give. In this light, the water reveals its surface again, no longer black but deep blue, then silver, then gold. The moon fades, but not without leaving a trace. The tide she pulled begins to recede. Shorebirds stir, crabs emerge from burrows, seaweed glistens where the waves once reached. The entire coastline shifts by inches. These are not loud changes, but they are real, and they are everywhere. Among the tidal pools left behind are tiny worlds, microcosms of the sea, held in rock and basin. A pool no larger than a footprint can contain starfish, snails, darting fish, anemones waving like tiny dancers. These pools are the moon's touch made still. They are reminders that the ocean does not forget where it has been. It leaves pieces of itself to linger, to teach, to breathe a little longer. And people return to these shores again and again, drawn not just by beauty, but by rhythm. There is something deeply human about standing where water meets land, something that quiets us. We build sandcastles, we write names in the wet earth, we walk barefoot through foam and leave footprints that vanish in seconds. And even though we know the ocean erases all of it, we do it anyway, because we are not trying to last, we are trying to belong. The moon sets, but her pull does not stop. Even when we cannot see her, she tugs at the ocean. Even during new moon, when her face is hidden, her force remains. The tides still come and go, the currents still turn. This is the lesson that ocean and moon whisper together. What is unseen still moves us. What is gentle can be powerful. What rises must fall, and what falls will rise again. This rhythm lives in us too. Our hearts beat in waves. Our breath ebbs and flows. We sleep and wake. We grow and rest. The moon influences not just the sea, but the body, especially the bodies that once swam in water before birth. Some believe our cycles mirror hers. Some feel her presence more deep. Whether it is gravity or myth, the feeling is real. And it's not just humans who feel it. Fish lay eggs with the phases of the moon. Coral spawns in harmony with lunar light. Sea turtles emerge from dark sands during full moons to begin their first swim. All of this is timed by a force that makes no sound and casts no warmth. It is just there, watching, pulling, guiding. In old stories, the moon was a goddess, and the sea her mirror. Sailors once believed the moon controlled fate, that a bad moon meant a bad voyage. Poets wrote of her silence, her gaze, her mystery. Even today we speak of things happening once in a blue moon or being moonstruck, of the moon watches, and the ocean remembers. Together they carry the emotion of Earth. When dawn finally breaks and the moon slips below the horizon, something remains in the air. A softness, a quiet trace of something that was just there. The tide is lower now, the beach stretches farther. The wind picks up, the birds call louder, and the sea returns to its daytime self. But it is not the same ocean it was. It has changed, just a little, just enough. And so we learn that the sea does not sleep beneath the moon. It dreams, it remembers, it listens, it moves with care, with depth, with devotion. Not all at once, not loudly, but constantly though. The ocean shows us how to rise and fall, to pull and release, to exist without resistance. It teaches us to love without holding, to give without expecting, to return without regret. So if you find yourself near the sea one night, with the moon above and the waves around your feet, take a moment. Breathe with it. Let your thoughts match its rhythm. Feel the tide as something ancient, something familiar, something within you. And know this, you are part of the same cycle. You rise, you fall, you move, you rest. And in every quiet breath, in every patient tide, the moon and the ocean are with you, guiding, holding, and beginning again. Before the world wakes, before footsteps return to roads and voices fill the air, there is a quiet language spoken between leaf and sky. It arrives gently, unnoticed by most. You don't hear it, you don't see it coming, but if you rise early, before the sun has fully broken through the horizon, you'll find it waiting. Dew, scattered like secrets across the skin of the earth, not poured, not peered, formed, whispered into existence by the slow meeting of cool and warm, of breath and stillness, of night turning softly into day. Dew is more than water. It is the result of a perfect pause. It forms when air, heavy with invisible moisture, meets a surface that is cooler than itself. This causes the vapour to change, not with drama, but with grace. One molecule at a time, water vapour condenses, settling as droplets on blades of grass, on spiderwebs, on petals folded like sleeping hands. It is transformation as silence, a reminder that the smallest shifts can create the gentlest beauty. Look closely and dew reveals its artistry. The drops are never random. They align with the shape of the leaf, following veins like punctuation in a sentence. They hold light in a way nothing else does, bending it, breaking it, scattering it. A single dewdrop can hold a full reflection of the world, upside down and glowing with dawn. In those moments, every blade of grass becomes a lens, every petal a mirror. The world reflects itself back in fragments of gold and silver. To plants, dew is more than decoration. It is nourishment. In places where rain is scarce, dew is a quiet lifeline. Some desert plants have evolved to drink it. Their leaves are textured to catch more droplets. Their surfaces guide the water inward. Some flowers close at night, not to rest, but to catch dew more effectively. Others open just before sunrise, drinking the first wet breath of morning before the sun can take it back. And in forests, dew supports the earliest hours of life. Small insects wake to drink it. Tiny mammals lick it from stones and bark. Birds shake it from their feathers. Dew marks the shift between night's hush and day's hum. It is the moment in between, the threshold where darkness exhales and light arrives. In that breath something sacred happens. Water, once vapour, becomes presence again. Even spiderwebs, strung silently through branches and grass, reveal their elegance when touched by dew. At night, they are invisible threads, but come morning they shine, every strand beaded with light, every curve suddenly seen. Dew makes visible what was hidden. It honours the work done in darkness. The weaver's craft is given form by water's arrival. There is science behind it, yes, humidity, temperature, surface tension. But dew doesn't feel scientific. It feels poetic. It doesn't fall from the sky like rain. It emerges from air. It appears as if by thought. And perhaps that's why it moves us, because it reminds us that not all creation comes from force. Some things arise from stillness, from alignment, from simply being in the right moment. In ancient times, dew was seen as magical, a blessing from the gods, a sign of favour. Some believed it could heal, others that it could cleanse. Alchemists collected it to make elixirs. Farmers watched it to predict the weather. Poets wrote of it as morning's kiss. Even now we sense something delicate in it, something pure, something unchanged by noise. And yet dew is temporary. The sun arrives, and the warmth begins to reclaim what the night left behind. Droplets shrink. Some are drawn back into air, some are absorbed by the plant itself. Others slip down into soil, joining the unseen streams that feed the roots below. By mid-morning, the language of dew has been erased, but not forgotten. Its message has already been heard. There is something deeply human in that ephemerality. We too leave traces. We too shine briefly. We appear, we nourish, we vanish, but the impact remains. A flower opens because of a drop it received before you saw it. A seed sprouts, a petal glows, and none of it would have happened without that silent moment of gathering in the dark. When you walk through a dewy meadow, you leave behind patterns, footprints made not in dust, but in glimmer. The blades bend, the droplets cling to shoes, to skin, to fur. The path you walk is marked, not for long, but just enough to show you are there. Dew doesn't last, but it listens. And in urban places, dew still finds a way. On rooftops, on car windows, on forgotten benches. It does not need wilderness to speak. It only needs coolness, quiet, and a chance. Even among noise and light, it returns each night. A soft resilience, a whispered insistence that nature still moves, still breathes, even under concrete skies. There's a moment, just after dawn, when the air smells different. Fresher, softer. That scent is dew. It carries the breath of night plants, the oils of flowers, the minerals of earth. It floats, brief and sweet, like a lullaby fading as the world wakes. You can't hold it, but you can feel it. And that feeling lingers long after the light has erased its source. To notice dew is to practice presence. To rise early enough to catch it is to see the world as it was before footsteps and voices, before the machinery of the day begins. It is to see beauty formed not by hands, but by air, by patience, by waiting in stillness until the moment is right. So next time you wake early and find your window fogged, or your lawn glittering, or a single drop balanced perfectly on the tip of a leaf, pause. You are witnessing a language that doesn't speak in words, a story that begins with breath and ends in glow. This is the language of dew on morning leaves, and it is always worth listening to. Let us follow the trail of dew deeper now, not just across leaves and petals, but into the quiet science of its making, and the soft connections it weaves between sky, soil, and life. Dew is not placed by chance. It follows a rhythm as precise as a heartbeat, a rhythm tied to the cooling of surfaces, to the way air releases what it cannot carry when the temperature falls. Every night the earth exhales. Every morning dew is the breath we can see. This breath begins in layers. As night deepens, heat slowly leaves the ground, carried upward into the sky. Without sunlight to replenish it, the surface cools. Cooler surfaces, grass, metal, glass, even our bare skin, draw warmth away from the air just above them. And when that air cools, its invisible water turns visible. Droplets begin to appear, not because the air is full of water, but because the surface has asked for it. Gently, silently, with nothing more than a difference in temperature. These droplets are tiny at first, almost unseen, but they grow, and how they grow depends on the world around them. A blade of grass with a waxy surface will bead dew like pearls. A rough rock will hold it in small pools. A flower petal might let it run slowly along its edge. Each surface gives the dew a different shape, a different shimmer. It is the same water, the same breath, but spoken in 100 dialects of form. Plants do not just receive dew, they influence it. Some even help to make it. Certain species release compounds during the night that encourage condensation. Others shape their leaves to funnel dew toward their roots. In some desert regions, plants survive almost entirely on dew, harvesting it with structures as fine as spiderwebs and as intricate as woven baskets. Dew becomes a meal, a drink, a prayer answered quietly in the dark. Insects have also learned the language of dew. Tiny beetles in the Namib desert tilt their bodies toward early morning fog, catching droplets on their backs to drink. Moths lick dew from petals. Ants collect it from stone. Even creatures as small as mites drink in those soft drops before the sun takes them away. Where rain is rare, dew becomes currency, small but precious, quiet but voluminous, vital. And above all of this, dew speaks to the balance of things. It does not arrive in storms. It does not flood. It is not loud or urgent. It is a gift given only when the world is calm enough to receive it. No wind to scatter, no heat to steal, just the right coolness, the right stillness, the right pause in motion. That balance is fragile and sacred. Climate shapes dew. In humid regions, it forms more easily. In dry places, it requires help. From shade, from soil, from the wisdom of plants. Even small changes in temperature can mean the difference between a damp field and a dry one. And as the world warms, the patterns of dew shift. Some places receive more, others less. Scientists watch these changes closely because dew is not just decoration, it is data. It tells the story of the night. But beyond science, dew remains something we feel. Step barefoot into a dewy field and your skin learns a softness language cannot explain. Sit beside a window fogged with night breath, and your thoughts begin to slow. Dew invites reflection. It asks nothing but stillness. In return, it offers clarity, not answers, but awareness, that the world is alive, even in its quietest hours. For farmers, dew once told time. A heavy dew meant a cool night. A dry morning warned of heat. Dew on crops could mean disease or blessing. It could delay harvest or promise growth. Even now, in quiet fields, it is watched with reverence. Not for what it says loudly, but for what it suggests, like a whisper across the skin of the earth. Poets have long found in dew a metaphor for life, brief, bright, beautiful, something that arrives quietly and departs without sound, something that catches light, but cannot hold it, something that teaches us to see not by changing the world, but by changing our attention. To notice dew is to notice the unnoticed, to pause long enough for wonder to settle. And in that wonder, we begin to remember that we too are shaped by the unseen. Just as air holds water we cannot see, our minds carry thoughts not yet spoken, feelings not yet felt. Sometimes, in the cool of morning, these rise to the surface, a memory, a dream, a question, and they settle for a moment clear and round before the day begins to warm and carry them away. Dew reminds us that presence is a form of offering, that even the smallest act, like a molecule turning to liquid, can hold beauty. That stillness is not a lack of motion, but a readiness to become. Each drop of dew is an invitation to slow down, to witness, to receive, not to collect or keep, but to honor. Children see this more easily than adults. They run through wet grass with squeals of delight. They point to the sparkles on spiderwebs. They press fingers against cool windows and draw hearts in the fog. To them, dew is not fleeting, it is magic. It is proof that the world is alive and watching even when no one else is awake. And perhaps, in their laughter, in their tiny footprints pressed into damp lawns, we remember what dew has always tried to say, that the world begins again each morning, that the night leaves behind a gift, that the quiet things are the most faithful, that nothing is too small to shine. So when you see dew tomorrow or the next time you rise before the sun and step into the hush, know that you are witnessing more than water. You are witnessing breath turn to beauty, silence turn to sparkle. The world waking slowly, speaking not in thunder, but in touch. This is how dew speaks, and the earth listens. Let us now arrive at the quiet farewell of dew, the moment just after its shimmer begins to fade. The sun has lifted itself gently over the horizon, spilling warmth across rooftops, through trees, across open fields. Slowly, the soft breath of night lifts. Dew, which once covered every surface with silver touch, begins to vanish, not all at once, but in small departures. A droplet evaporates from a blade of grass. Another slips into a flower's thirsty core. Another is absorbed into soil, unseen but not lost. The language of dew does not end, it transforms. This transformation is tender. Each molecule of water that leaves a surface rises quietly back into the sky, returning to the invisible world of vapour. The sun does not steal it, it welcomes it home. The process is patient. Some droplets remain longer, tucked in shadows, clinging to the cool metal of a fence or the shaded side of a tree trunk. But eventually even those give way. Dew was never meant to stay. It was only meant to arrive, to nourish, and to leave without trace. And yet its presence lingers. Plants feel it. Roots wake slowly with its touch. Leaves stretch with more ease. Flowers open not to greet the sun alone, but because they've already been kissed by water. For many living things, dew is the beginning. Before rain, before rivers, before watering cans or storms, there is dew. A first drink, a first gesture of the day, and in that gesture, life begins to stir. Even the earth responds. Soil softened by dew is easier to dig into, easier to hold seeds, easier to give. Earthworms move toward the surface, microbes awaken. A garden becomes a breathing thing again. In places untouched by irrigation or heavy rain, dew is enough to begin, enough to whisper growth. Birds flutter down not just to sing but to sip. Bees pause on leaves, collecting moisture before flight. Butterflies stretch wings damp with mist. The air feels rounder, fuller, not because it is wet, but because it has touched water's form. Dew is gone, but it has given its softness to everything it touched. To walk through the world after dew is to feel its trace. The soles of your shoes are darker, your cuffs damp, your fingers cool from brushing past hedges or railing. There is a freshness that clings, not from perfume or breeze, but from the memory of water in its most honest shape. No thunder, no fall, just presence. And in this presence is a lesson we often forget, that not all power comes from being seen. Dew is invisible until the moment is right. It exists only when conditions align. Air cool enough, surface ready, sky calm. It teaches us patience, that waiting is not wasted, that arrival can be silent. That beauty is sometimes a matter of timing. In the grand cycle of water, dew plays a role as delicate as it is essential. It connects earth to sky, vapour to root, night to morning. It is part of the same journey as rain, as river, as sea. But it is the quiet chapter, the one we must lean in close to read. The one that speaks not in storms but in softness. There are places in the world where people still gather dew. They stretch cloths over grasses or hang them in the air to catch moisture, wringing it out in the morning. In the driest deserts, this practice sustains life. In monasteries and remote gardens, dew is collected as a symbol of purity. To drink it is to taste the untouched, to honour the small. In literature, dew appears again and again as a metaphor for fleeting beauty, for love, for transience. It is always something that arrives gently and disappears with dignity. And perhaps that is its deepest lesson, that we too might learn to come gently into the lives we touch, to nourish, to reflect light, and to move on when our moment has passed. Because dew never stays to be praised. It doesn't wait for applause. It doesn't cling to the leaf, begging not to vanish. It knows its role. It trusts its cycle, and in doing so, it teaches us to let go, not with sadness, but with grace. So much of life is about holding on, but dew shows us another way, that some gifts are meant to be brief, that some moments are made perfect because they end. That presence is not about how long we stay, but how fully we arrive. A single dewdrop held on the edge of a petal can reflect the entire world. That is enough. And when it's gone, the memory remains, in the green of the grass, in the bloom of a flower, in the coolness left behind on your fingertips. Dew becomes part of everything. It leaves nothing behind, yet gives everything. So the next time you wake early and find the grass wet beneath your feet, pause. Notice the way the morning light touches each surface. Watch as droplets catch fire, then vanish. Listen, not for sound, but for stillness. Feel, not for wetness, but for presence. You are standing in a world that has just been washed by the breath of night. And as the sun rises higher, as the last drops fade into air, let that be your lesson, that the smallest things can hold the greatest beauty, that the quietest moments can nourish deepest, and that the world, even in silence, is always speaking. This is the language of dew. And if you listen with care, it will speak to you, not in thunder, but in touch. Not in words, but in wonder. Always returning, always disappearing, always beginning again. There is a rhythm beneath your skin that you did not invent. A pull, a swell, a retreat, so subtle, so constant you might never notice it unless you listen closely. It does not tick like a clock, nor chime like a bell. It moves more like a tide. And perhaps in some quiet way, that's exactly what it is. For just as the oceans rise and fall beneath the tug of the moon, something within you responds, not just to gravity, but to memory, to motion, to the deep and ancient language of water that lives inside your very blood. The ocean is not far from you. Even if you've never seen its shores, never stood barefoot where wave meets sand, it lives within you. The salt in your tears, the minerals in your bones, the flow of your pulse, all trace back to seas long past. Your ancestors crawled from the tide pools. Your cells still echo their saline home. Inside your veins, there is a rhythm that was born in the sea, and that rhythm does not beat alone. The moon rises, the tide follows, the tide moves, and something in you stirs. It's not superstition, it's not magic, it is resonance. The human body is mostly water, and water listens. It listens to gravity, to motion, to change. It shifts in subtle ways, pressure, fluid levels, chemical balance, all quietly echoing the ocean's movements. We are not apart from tides, we are shaped by them. Many ancient cultures believed the moon governed not just the sea, but the soul. That emotions followed her cycle, swelling with the full moon, retreating with the dark. And though science cannot measure the heart in waves, it does not deny the pull. Hospitals track sleep patterns. Farmers follow lunar calendars. Midwives mark moonrise. There are pulses in the earth we still feel, even if we cannot name them. Emotions, too, have tides. They come not in straight lines, but in waves. Joy rises, crests and falls. Grief ebbs and returns. Love deepens like water drawn by unseen force. We speak this way without thinking. We say someone was flooded with feeling. We say pain comes in waves. We talk about getting swept away. The body knows the metaphor is true because it is made of the same patterns. The tide outside becomes the tide within. Even the brain reflects this ebb and flow. Hormones rise and fall, neurotransmitters shift, sleep cycles move in phases. Brainwaves ripple through cycles of rest and activity, thought and dream. None of this is static, none of it fixed. The mind, like the moonlit sea, is always in motion. And that motion is not random. It follows rhythms older than thought. In relationships, we feel this pull too. Connection comes in tides. There are moments of closeness, of union, when two people move in step like twin waves. And there are times of distance, when the tide draws back, when silence fills the space between. But like the sea, this distance is not disappearance. It is part of the rhythm. It allows return. It teaches us how to miss, how to reapproach, how to love in cycles rather than constancy. Our very breath moves like the tide. Inhale, exhale, rise, fall. We breathe in the way the sea reaches shore. We breathe out like waves withdrawing. This is not just a function of lungs. It is a lullaby sung by the body to remind itself that it is alive. And each breath carries within it echoes of the deep ocean wind, of the moon's distant song, of all the tides that shaped us. On certain nights when the moon is full and the tide is high, the ocean seems to reach higher than before, almost as if longing for something. We do too. We reach for meaning, for connection, for something just beyond. We do not always know why, we just feel the pull. That too is the tide within us, around us, guiding without force. Creativity often arrives in tides. Inspiration does not pour steadily, it arrives in waves. You may find yourself overwhelmed with ideas, and then find them gone the next day. This is not failure, it is the rhythm of becoming. Rest is not the absence of creation, it is its ebb. And when the tide returns, the ideas do too. Stronger, deeper, clearer for having waited. There are times in life when everything feels still, unmoving, empty. These are the low tides of the soul. It is tempting to believe the water will not return, but it always does. The sea never abandons the shore. It simply pauses, gathers, returns, and we are no different. Our strength returns, our joy, our love, always in time, always in cycles. Even the heartbeat mimics this dance. It surges and slows, it races and steadies, and in that pattern lies your life, your story, your tide. The space between beats matters as much as the beat itself. Silence is not the opposite of sound, it is the shape that gives sound meaning. Stillness is not the opposite of movement, it is its companion. The tides within us are not meant to be controlled, they are meant to be honoured, to be felt. When we fight them, push away sadness, rush joy, resist change, we suffer. But when we allow the tide to move as it must, we find peace, not in permanence, but in pattern. So when you feel your heart rise with longing, or your thoughts fall into stillness, do not resist. You are not broken, you are not lost, you are simply moving with the rhythm of something larger, something ancient, something as constant as the moon, as vast as the sea. You are water, you are tide, you are human, and your heart remembers. Let us drift further now, into the deeper currents of this invisible tide that lives within each of us. Like the sea that hides its motion beneath a calm surface, the heart moves through phases that cannot always be seen from above. There are quiet swells of feeling, long undertows of memory, sudden waves of knowing. And though these inner tides may not leave footprints in the sand, they leave impressions in the way we speak, act, and connect. The human heart, beating quietly in a ribcage of bone and breath, is as shaped by a rhythm as the ocean is by the moon. Think of how we love, not all at once, but gradually, in cycles. The first glance is a tide beginning to rise, the shared word, the lingering silence, the small gesture, each one a ripple, building, and then comes the crest, the swell of intimacy, of belonging, of that moment when two people look at each other and feel that they have been seen. But even this is not static. Love moves. It deepens, it retreats, it returns, sometimes gently, sometimes with storm. We are not meant to love in a straight line. We are meant to love like water, flowing, rising, responding to gravity and time. There are moments when we overflow with feeling, unable to contain the beauty of connection. And there are moments when we recede, drawing inward, seeking solitude, needing space. Both are necessary. The high tide cannot exist without the low. Grief, too, moves in waves. Anyone who has mourned knows this. It does not stay steady. It rises suddenly, when you least expect it. A smell, a sound, a certain light in the air. Then it passes, leaving you breathless and quiet. And for a while the sea inside you is calm again, until it's not. And this is not weakness. It is how the heart heals, not by erasing sorrow, but by learning to move with it, to float when it swells, to rest when it retreats. Even our memories follow tides. Some stay near the surface, always shimmering. Others sink, hidden for years, only to rise again with the pull of a familiar voice or the scent of something long forgotten. A childhood song, the smell of earth after rain, a hand that once held yours. And when those memories rise, they bring feeling with them. Joy, ache, wonder, regret. The heart does not forget what it has felt. It stores it like the sea stores salt, always there, always part of the current. Sleep follows tides too. We drift between waking and dreaming, consciousness and rest. Our bodies cool, our hearts slow, our breath deepens. In sleep we enter a kind of low tide, a place where thoughts sink and the soul floats, and in dreams the tide rises again, carrying us into strange waters. This is how the body restores itself, not in stillness, but in subtle movement between states. Some scientists believe that our very biology echoes the lunar cycle. Studies suggest slight shifts in mood and energy tied to the phases of the moon, especially in those who live close to nature. The ancient idea that the moon affects us is not so far from truth, for we are still part of the earth, still pulled by her rhythms, even if we forget to notice. Musicians know this. They speak of phrasing and flow, of rests between notes, of breath between lines. Music is not only sound, it is silence shaped into meaning. And the heart too has music. The pulse beneath your skin, the cadence of your speech, the slow return of your breath after laughter. You are a song made of tide. Pain ebbs, so does fear. Even the sharpest moments eventually soften, rounded by time and motion. But they do not vanish. They dissolve into us, becoming part of who we are. Like sea glass once broken, now smooth, like driftwood once lost, now beautiful. This too is a tide, the tide of transformation. Children understand this intuitively. They cry like storms and smile like sunlight. Their feelings arrive in waves, big, wild, and full of force. But they also let go easily, resetting with the next moment. They do not cling to the wave, they ride it. Somewhere along the way, adults forget how to do this. We try to dam the water, to stay always calm. But calm is not the same as peace. True peace includes motion. True peace allows feeling to rise and fall. When we walk beside the ocean, we feel something stir. We may not name it, but it is real. The sound of waves slows the heart. The horizon expands the breath. The salt in the air speaks to something cellular. We are reminded, without words, that we belong to a larger rhythm, that no matter how alone we feel, we are part of the turning earth, the breathing sea, the ancient tide that moves through all things. This is why we return to the water when we seek healing, why we sit at its edge when we grieve, when we wonder, when we begin again. The sea does not solve, it listens, and in its endless rising and falling it offers us a mirror, not of who we are now, but of what we are always becoming. And in moments of deep feeling, whether love or loss, joy or confusion, it helps to remember that the tide will change. The heart will rise again, the wave will return. You are not stuck. You are simply between movements, between the pull and the return. Even your breath reminds you inhale, exhale. Even your heartbeat, rest. Even your thoughts wander, return. These are tides. You are tide. And the more we honour this, the more we allow ourselves to live in waves, the more we begin to soften, to open, to understand that motion is not the opposite of stillness. It is its rhythm. That feeling is not the opposite of peace. It is its pulse, that we are not separate from the sea, we are shaped by it, within and without. And now, as we drift toward the close of this story, let us return to the tide one last time, not as a thing outside us, but as the quiet pulse within. The tide, that ancient rhythm of rise and retreat, teaches us something essential about being human. It teaches us that we are not built for constancy. We are not built to be always up or always still, always full or always empty. We are meant to move, to feel, to shift gently from one state to another, as the sea does beneath the sky. Consider how the tide never truly stops. Even at its stillest point, low tide or high, it is in the process of becoming. The water rests for a moment, and then it moves again. The same is true of us. There are moments in our lives that feel like pauses, like everything has stopped. But underneath, something is still shifting. The heart, even when it's quiet, is preparing for its next beat. The mind, even in stillness, is holding the space where thought can bloom. We are never truly stuck, we are only between tides. This understanding helps us meet ourselves with kindness. On days when energy is low, when the world feels too large or too loud, we can remember this is a low tide, not a failure, not a flaw, just a phase, a necessary part of the rhythm that allows fullness to return. And when energy rises again, when laughter comes easily, when ideas spark, when love feels wide, we can greet it not with greed, but with gratitude. Knowing it too is part of the motion. The tide does not fear its retreat, it trusts its return. And so must we. Our relationships follow this same rhythm. Friendships deepen and stretch, intimacy blooms and quiets. Families grow together, grow apart, then find new forms of closeness. We often resist these changes, fearing that distance means loss. But nature tells us otherwise. The tide must pull back to gather strength. The space it leaves behind is not absence, it is an invitation, a place for something new to arrive. Even our creative lives follow tide patterns. There are days full of spark, of clarity, of expression, and there are days of emptiness, of doubt, of stillness, the blank page, the quiet mind, the unanswered question. But these are not barren moments. They are low-tide beaches, places where treasures long hidden can be uncovered. Ideas buried in the sand, truths softened by time, waiting. And when we allow ourselves to move with that rhythm, to rest when rest is needed, to listen when the inner voice grows faint, we create space for the return. the wave of inspiration, the flood of insight, the joyful rush that follows patience. Creation like the sea cannot be forced. It must be welcomed. It must be trusted to arrive. There is also the tide of healing, after loss, after hurt, after change. Healing does not move in a straight line. It moves like water, forward, back, still, crashing, quiet. Some days we feel whole again. Others we feel as if the wound has reopened. But even then, healing continues. It moves below the surface. It works through time and breath and sleep and tenderness. The tide never returns the shore exactly as it was, but it smooths it, shapes it, polishes it with patience. And so, when we feel broken, when we feel lost in the recess of our own waters, we must remember what the sea has always shown us, that nothing is beyond repair, that everything moves, that even the sharpest cliffs are softened by waves. At night, when you lie down and listen to your own breath, try to hear it as ocean. The gentle swell of inhale, the falling sigh of exhale, the hush between. That too is a tide, a private shoreline moving just for you, and if you place your hand over your heart, feel the beat that never stops. Quiet, loyal, rising and falling like waves meeting sand. It is not just biology, it is memory, it is motion, it is the oldest rhythm you know. The moon may be hundreds of thousands of miles away, but its gravity pulls at your oceans and your blood just the same. The stars may be silent, but you are made of their dust. You are a body shaped by tide, a soul sculpted by a rhythm. You are part sea, part sky, part silence, part sound. So let yourself rise, let yourself fall. Let the high tides carry you, let the low tides teach you. You are not a mistake in the rhythm, you are the rhythm. You are the wave returning home. You are the moment between movement, the breath between words, the soft, glowing centre of the pull. And when life feels heavy, when the tide feels far, go to the water if you can. Stand at its edge, feel the wind on your face, watch the waves as they come and go. Do nothing else, just witness, just be. Let the water remind you of what your body already knows, that everything comes back, that even in your stillness you are moving, that your heart is not a machine, it is a tide, and it remembers the moon. This is the truth beneath all the noise. You are water, you are motion, you are change, and you are allowed to move like the sea, forever returning, forever becoming, forever beginning again. When thunder rolls across the sky and clouds darken the light of day, we often look up in awe or fear, forgetting that even within the storm, something quiet remains. Beneath the roiling winds, under the flashing skies and hammering rain, there is always a place of stillness, a calm hidden deep within the chaos. Storms may shake the world above, but below the surface, in the soil, in the deep ocean, in the centre of the self, there is a silence that does not move. This is the stillness beneath every storm. It waits, it listens, it endures. Storms begin not in rage, but in imbalance. Warm air rising, cold air falling, moisture caught between. It is a conversation between temperatures, a negotiation of pressure. The sky does not choose to be violent. It responds. It adjusts. And in that adjustment, something spectacular happens. Clouds build into towers, winds gather speed, lightning charges the air. The atmosphere does what all living things do when pushed. It moves toward balance. But in doing so, it makes noise, it sends signals. Thunder is not anger, it is release. Lightning is not destruction, it is connection. The sky finding the fastest way to restore its order. Even rain is a form of letting go. The clouds, having held too much, now release what they can no longer contain. And as all this unfolds in the skies above us, we feel it in our bodies. Our breath shortens, our senses sharpen. We become aware, alert, animal. The world feels alive, not because it has changed, but because the storm reminds us we are part of it. And yet, inside the storm, there is always a centre. In hurricanes, this centre is called the eye, a place of eerie calm where the wind stops and the sky clears. Birds can fly through it. The sea smooths, the chaos surrounds it, but does not touch it. The eye holds still, even as the storm spins violently around it. It is the heart of balance within imbalance, the quiet within noise. There is an eye inside you too, a place untouched by the swirl of fear, anxiety, or confusion. You may not feel it when your thoughts are racing or when the world feels heavy, but it is there. Beneath the emotion, beyond the reaction, there is stillness. A place that watches, a place that waits, a place that knows the storm will pass. Our minds are like weather, constantly shifting. Thoughts gather like clouds. Emotions rise like wind. Some days are full of light, others darken without warning. But no storm lasts forever, and beneath every mental downpour, there is a deeper part of you that remains steady, like roots in the ground during lightning, like deep ocean during a cyclone. Still, unshaken. Nature mirrors this truth again and again. In the forest, when rain falls hard, the canopy thrashes and sways. But on the forest floor, under the shelter of leaves and soil, there is quiet. Raindrops become muffled, the air smells of wet earth, and small creatures go about their business undisturbed. The violence above cannot reach the peace below. In lakes and ponds, wind creates ripples and waves on the surface, but only the upper layers move. Below a certain depth, the water stays still, untouched by the frenzy above. Fish drift slowly. Plants wave gently. This is called the thermocline, a boundary between the turbulent and the calm. Even water remembers how to be still in the midst of motion. The same is true of sound. A storm may roar, but silence always returns. Thunder fades, rain slows, wind softens, and then comes the hush, the peace that follows release. It is not the absence of sound, it is the earth resetting its breath, realigning its balance. The storm does not end in violence, it ends in stillness. And sometimes it is the storm that brings the most clarity. After rain, colours seem brighter. Leaves shine, the air smells clean, dust is washed away, pollen settles. The world feels new, not because the storm damaged it, but because it reminded it how to begin again. The same can be true for us. Inside every emotional storm, every moment of panic or heartbreak or overwhelm, there is something waiting to emerge. Clarity, strength, wisdom. We do not grow only in peace, we grow in challenge. We grow in turbulence, but we do not grow from chaos itself. We grow from how we find the stillness beneath it. In meditation, people learn to watch their thoughts without clinging to them. Like clouds passing overhead, they learn that the mind can storm, but the observer within remains still. That thoughts can be loud, but awareness is always quiet. The practice is not about silencing the weather. It is about finding shelter inside it. And this shelter is always with you. When life feels fast, or voices feel too loud, or the weight of decisions presses in, you can return to this place. Close your eyes, listen for your breath, feel your heartbeat. Let the storms swirl, let the sky flash. Know that inside you there is space untouched. A field not trampled, a pond not rippled. This is your stillness. It belongs to you. So often we believe that calm means no conflict, that peace means silence, that strength means never shaking. But the earth does not agree. The earth shakes and rumbles, it storms and crashes, and yet it endures, it renews, it blooms again. You do not have to avoid the storm to be at peace, you only have to know where to stand within it. And sometimes you do not even need to stand, you only need to wait, to breathe, to remember that the sky clears, that the ground holds, that the wind quiets, that you are stronger than the weather of your mind. This is the lesson written in every thundercloud, every gust of wind, every drop of sudden rain. That stillness is not the opposite of the storm, it is its heart, and it is waiting for you. Let us step further into the storm now, not to escape it, but to understand what lives within it. To walk among the winds is not to be lost, but to learn how they move, how they shape, how they pass. Storms are not enemies of calm, they are messengers of change. They arrive when something must shift, inside the sky, inside the earth, inside us. And though they may roar and tear and scatter, their purpose is not destruction, their purpose is balance. Look at the way the wind behaves in a storm. It does not move randomly, it follows lines of energy, paths of pressure, invisible corridors of heat and cold. Trees bend not because they are weak, but because they have learned how to survive this motion. They give, they sway, they dance with the air. The strongest trees are not the ones that resist the wind, they are the ones that move with it. And in the human heart, we find the same. When emotion comes like a gale, grief, anger, fear, It is not wrong to feel it. It is not weakness. It is weather. And the heart that can bend will not break. The heart that listens will survive the storm, not by becoming hard, but by staying rooted. Stillness does not mean the absence of feeling. It means the presence of awareness in the midst of it. Storms come in many forms. Some arrive in the sky with thunder and rain. Some arrive in the mind with racing thoughts, doubts, spirals of worry. Others land in the body, exhaustion, pain, restlessness, and some move through the soul, questions of purpose, of worth, of direction. But in all their forms, storms begin with a disturbance, a build-up of tension, and they end with release. Think of the relief after a storm, the scent of the air, the way the world seems quieter, more defined. The tension has lifted, the weight is gone, and in its place, clarity. The storm teaches not through explanation, but through transformation. It is a reset, a washing clean. This is how the nervous system works too. When it is overwhelmed, it responds with storm, a rush of adrenaline, a spike in heartbeat, breath shortened, muscles tightened. It prepares for motion, for defense, for escape. But when the danger passes, real or imagined, it slowly settles. The parasympathetic system activates. Breath slows, muscles soften, calm returns. The body knows how to storm. It also knows how to still. Animals understand this instinctively. After fleeing danger, a deer will stand still, breathing heavily, then shake its body from nose to tail. It is not panic. It is reset. It is the body releasing what it held so it can return to peace. Humans carry this same wisdom, though we often forget how to access it. We bottle tension. We resist the wave, but we can learn to shake, to breathe, to let go, to trust that stillness will return. Storms are also part of renewal. In forests, fire sparked by lightning clears undergrowth, making way for new growth. In deserts, sudden rains bring blooms overnight. In oceans, turbulent currents stir nutrients from the deep, feeding entire ecosystems. Destruction and creation are often two faces of the same turning, and within us the same is true. Sometimes we must break in order to open. Sometimes the storm must come for us to feel what is ready to be released. We are taught to fear these moments, to hold them back. But what if we welcomed them instead? What if we said yes to the feeling, not to be consumed by it, but to move through it? Because beneath the storm, beneath the rise of emotion, there is always something honest. Pain points to care, anger points to boundaries, grief points to love. Even anxiety, which feels like chaos, often points to uncertainty, to the unknown asking to be known. When we listen to the storm, we learn about ourselves. In the center of this learning is the breath. It is always available. It does not argue. It does not shout. It says, "Come back to me." Inhale, exhale, like waves, like wind, like the rise and fall of a storm passing over a field. The breath does not stop the storm, but it anchors us within it. And then there is silence. Not just the silence that follows the storm, but the silence within it. Between thunderclaps, between gusts, between thoughts. These small silences are doorways. They invite us into presence. They ask nothing of us but to be. It is in these pauses that we begin to remember something old and steady. That storms do not last. They cannot. The sky cannot hold its tension forever, or can the heart. The clouds will break, the light will return, and in that return we will see more clearly. Not just the world, but ourselves. This clarity often feels like tenderness. After the crying stops, after the shouting fades, after the thoughts slow. What remains is not emptiness. It is softness, a kind of openness that could not exist before. The storm cleared space, and now something new can grow. Perhaps that something is understanding, or peace, or courage, or simply a breath that feels easy again. Whatever it is, it arrives not because we avoided the storm, but because we walked through it, with awareness, with breath, with the memory of stillness waiting beneath. So when the next storm comes, outside or inside, do not rush to escape it. Sit with it if you can. Breathe through it. Touch the quiet in the middle. Trust that no matter how loud the sky becomes, you are not the wind, you are not the cloud, you are the center, the watcher, the calm inside the motion. And when the storm passes, as it always does, step outside. Smell the air. Touch the wet leaves. Listen to what has changed, and know that something inside you has changed too. You have weathered the storm, and you have found, once again, the stillness that was always waiting to return. Now let us rest in the quiet after the storm, the part of the story that often goes unnoticed, yet holds the deepest truths. This is not the silence of nothingness. It is the silence of something that has passed, something that has spoken, something that has now laid itself down. The clouds have thinned, the thunder has faded into memory. The air feels thick and clean, like the earth itself has taken a long, deep breath. This is the stillness not before the storm, but after, and it carries its own kind of power. You can feel it in your chest, like the slowing of a drumbeat. Your breath returns to its rhythm. Your shoulders drop. The body, no longer braced, begins to soften. This softness is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the nervous system remembering what safety feels like. It is the mind learning that not all urgency is permanent. The calm is not a trick. It is real. And it was waiting for you all along. This is what the earth teaches every time it storms, that peace is not the absence of motion. It is the returning. That stillness is not the opposite of chaos. It is its resolution. After a night of howling wind and hammering rain, the morning arrives slower, more golden. The leaves drip quietly, the streets shine, the sky opens like a healed wound, and you walk outside not into the same world, but into one that has been rinsed, reformed and reborn. Nature does not apologize for the storm, nor does it rush to explain, it simply carries on. A bird lands on a wet branch and sings again. A snail moves slowly across stone, unconcerned with what has come and gone. There is no judgment, no shame, just presence. And in that presence we find the example we so often need, the ability to begin again without needing to justify the pause. Humans are allowed to be like this too, to be storm and stillness, to rise in emotion and then fall back into softness. We are allowed to feel deeply, to move through waves of intensity, and then sit in the quiet that follows without explaining ourselves. The heart does not need permission to recover. The spirit does not need to hurry to clarity. Stillness does not come because we've earned it. It comes because we are made for it. Think of how the ocean calms after a storm. The waves, once tall and wild, settle into long, slow rolls. Foam recedes from the shore. Fish return to their hiding places. Light filters through the water once more. And below the surface, even the deepest currents slow. This underwater hush is mirrored inside us. After we cry, after we shout, after we tremble, we rest. We sigh. We sleep. We begin again. This is healing, not something loud or instant, but something gradual, sacred, often invisible. It happens in the quiet spaces, in the conversations we don't rush, in the choices we make when no one is watching, in the way we carry ourselves after the storm has passed, not trying to pretend it never came, but holding its lessons gently in our hands. Storms, after all, leave behind more than wreckage. They leave behind clarity. What is broken gets seen, what is weak is revealed, what is strong remains, and sometimes what is broken was no longer meant to be whole. A branch snapped to make room for new growth, a wall cracked so that light could come in, a flood that cleared what was stagnant. Destruction and transformation are often woven together. The stillness that follows is not empty, it is fertile. It is the quiet in which seeds sprout, ideas bloom, hearts open again. This stillness is where we feel things more deeply, not because we are overwhelmed, but because we are finally quiet enough to hear them. The voice of intuition, the echo of understanding, the simple truth of being here. And sometimes this stillness brings gratitude, not always loud, not always joyful, but deep and slow. Gratitude that the worst is over. That breath is steady, that we made it through, even if things are not perfect, even if things still feel tender. Gratitude does not mean we wanted the storm, it means we can see what it revealed. There is also a beauty in remembering that storms are shared. No matter how isolated we may feel in the eye of our own emotional weather, someone else has stood where we stand. Someone else has felt the same weight in their chest, the same rush in their pulse, the same aching need for quiet. And someone else too has found their way through. This connects us, not just in joy, but in weathering. To hold space for someone in their storm is not to fix it, but to stand beside them as the wind blows, to be still when they cannot be, to whisper calm when they can only hear thunder, to be a shelter until their own stillness returns, and when it does, to walk with them into the quiet. And when it is your turn, when you are the one shaken, scattered, lost in the noise, remember that you do not have to walk alone. The path has been walked before. The way back to stillness is not a secret. It begins with breath, with patience, with the remembering that every storm has a center, and every storm eventually breaks. So step into the hush now, into this soft and sacred space. Let the past wash off your skin. Let your breath settle into your body. Let your heart rest in its rhythm. You have weathered what came. You have held through the wind. You have listened to the noise and now hear the silence more clearly. This stillness is yours. It is not a gift from the world. It is not a prize. It is your nature, your home, your birthright. It has always been waiting, not at the end of the storm, but at its center. And now that the storm has passed, you can feel it again. This is the stillness beneath every storm, not just after, not just before, but always, always within.